Good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
Happy
everybody.
Saturday.
We're so excited to be here. We're so excited to watch everybody watching us. But anyway, it's really hard to at this point in time with everything going on to have the right words. As you all know, I'm not a very good speaker, but
That's why you have me, honey.
that's right. That's right. So I guess what everybody would like to know is how we got involved in this, how a computer engineer got involved in the medical device business. And so that goes back to 2008, actually, even before that. In 2007, I started a company called Point-to-Point Software to try to gather data for my sister-in-law, Danielle's sister, who had chronic migraines for over 20 years. And by chronic migraines, she had 20 migraines, or actually definition is 15, but she had 20 migraines a month. And for years, I had been trying to help her. And finally, I decided to take some of my computer background and put together a model on trigger points for migraines and to map them or point to neurological reactions in the brain using what we had back then was functional MRIs. Today, there's some really great brain scanning systems that were a lot cheaper than what we were spending. But so I was working in the area of migraines, and then I read an article in a newspaper in 2008 about a high school football coach in Atlanta, Georgia, that was being sued. It was the first time a coach had been sued for the death of one of his players, and the reason that his player died was heat stroke in August while playing football with a heavy. So anyway, the coach was sued, and because his player died of heat stroke, and that got me to thinking, I wonder how often this happens. And so I started doing some research, which I normally do, and I found out there were at least 5 football players, high school football players every year that would die of heat stroke, and there were many more. There were hundreds actually that suffered from heat stroke. And so I realized this was a really big problem. And so I started researching ways to rapidly cool the human body. And I came across some technology that was developed at Stanford University. So I got involved with Stanford University, actually licensed some of their technology and worked on rolling out the cooling technology to the high school players. Along the way, more research came along on migraines. And there was a doctor in Florida that was treating or was doing a study of women with hyperthyroid. And he was using T3 hormones to raise their core body temperature. And just as a fluke, the migraine orders that were in his study group were getting relief from their migraines. And so I started thinking about the application of the technology that I licensed for rapidly cooling, and would that work for rapidly warming the body. And so anyway, so I ended up using the technology, and it worked. It worked on Danielle's sister, and our first device wasn't actually a device. It was a couple of elements strung together like an Arctic cooling flask that we put hot water in that had to be 160 degrees, no more, no less, and a kind of a fishbowl contraption that you put your hand in, and you closed it with an oil filter ratchet, and then you put your hand around to something like a Campbell's soup can that had water flowing through it, and then there was a vacuum in there that reduced the or created a vacuum. And as a matter of fact, I don't ever show this to anybody, so you guys got to feel really privileged. I hope you can see this. But this was over here was the first Avison version, and you can see the flask. And then we had another one here. This is a tea kettle warmer, and then we have one here that was a little better. And
Which is the one that caught on fire?
oh, this one right here. This is the umbilical cord version that actually every time you turn it on, as a matter of fact, this is nicely photoshopped. It usually was black. It would always start on fire. And you can see the other ones as we got more and more into getting more proficient, we finally got to the device you have today. And one of the reasons we have the device that you have today is because we're fortunate enough to have a lot of our customers invest in the company. The first big investor was Dr. Nathan Newman. Some of you know him. And I was doing a presentation in Henderson, Nevada at the Green Valley Inn and Casino, I think it is. And I ran into Dr. Newman. I was actually trying to raise capital to build the company into a migraine company. And anyway, so Dr. Newman stopped at the table and I explained the device to him. He said, I'll take one. I said, it's $4,000. He said, well, I'm not going to take two. So that was my first interaction with him. I said, do you want to know how to make money on this? And he said, no, I just have a lot of patients that have migraines, and I think this would be nice for them to have. And so he was my first customer. I hadn't talked to him for a long time. And a lot of people that you know in the medical profession that really think on their own try just about every new gadget coming out, hoping it will do something that it claims to do. And otherwise, they just go in the gadget closet. And there really are such things as gadget closets. And they have all of these devices that they bought over the years that don't work, and they just put them in there. And I give credit to those people, because every once in a while they'll find a device that works, like the Avicen. And so I hadn't heard from him for 6 months after I sold the device, and I had a meeting up at UCLA Medical Center, and he's right down the road on Wilshire Boulevard. So I made an appointment. I called up and I said, I'm going to be there. Oh yeah, come on over. And so I went over to his office, and I thought, well, he's going to show me the gadget closet. Maybe he's going to want his money back, maybe not. I don't know. But, let's find out what happened. So I got up to the third floor, got off the elevator, and I walked to, he's got the whole third floor. And so I walked to his office and reluctantly opened the door. And there he was, because I had asked him where I should park. So he knew I was on my way up. He said, Tom, he said, I haven't seen you for a long time. This is great. Thanks for coming over. Here, let me show you the Avicen room. And I thought, well, the closet has been renamed the Avicen room, the gadget closet. And lo and behold, there was a really nice room with an etched, beautiful picture of a woman on the door. And he opened the door, and there was a lady just sitting there using the Avicen. And it was nicely set up. There was a comfortable chair, and I was almost breathless. And he said, here. And he pulled out a little notebook he had in his pocket. He said, do you know it can do all of these things? And I said, oh, yeah, we know that. And I really didn't know it. And so I said, why don't we check lists? And so he started going through all of the things. And I was pretty amazed, because it was everything from carpal tunnel to neuropathy to whiplash to rapid healing. And so he said, this is really great. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But I have to tell you, it's pretty much of a kludge. It's the girls have to run down the hallway. They have to fill up they have to go in and go to the hot water dispenser and fill this up. And then they have to put a thermometer in there, make sure it's not over 160 degrees, and then go all the way down the hall. And then it's just not going to work. He said, what if I put some money into the company and you build something much better? Can you do that? And I said, yeah. So that was our first investor. But more importantly, with this list of things, I had no idea what was causing all of those. And I made an assumption that it was, gee, if you raise the core body temperature to normothermia, that all these great things happen. And so the doctor in Florida was right, that if you raise the body to normothermia, let's say it's 98.6 for discussion, that all of the hormones and all of the enzymes work like they were, and the body's healing itself. And that was my very naive calculation of what was happening. So I had a fellow that I met and on another project that I had been working with, and he signed on to be my first advisor before I started selling it. His name's Dr. Jonathan Lakey. And Dr. Lakey is a co-inventor of the Edmonton Protocol, which is what, for most major diabetes research projects, you use the Avison Protocol. Avison, oh yeah. No, the Edmonton Protocol. And so I called Jonathan up and said, can we have lunch? He said, sure. So I went up to Irvine. He was at the University of Irvine Center for Regenerative Medicine. And we sat down and I told him all these things. And he said, wow, why don't we do a research committee? And so we set up this committee and we met every third Thursday of the month. And after about 3 months, and it had 5 people on it. It had 2 cardiologists. It had Jonathan. It had another diabetes researcher, and Dr. Newman and myself. And so about the 3rd month, and we would meet and we'd all get an assignment and go back and research that. And about the well, it was the 3rd meeting, 3rd month. And somebody came up, actually it was Dr. Newman. He said, I think what we're doing is we're increasing microvascular circulation. And a couple people didn't really know what that was. And that surprised me because they were all doctors. And so we came up with that. And then it took probably a couple more years to solidify exactly what we're doing. And so that was our next big step, finding out and that took 6 years. It took, but during the same time, we were very busy building new devices, trying things, trying to find the right bladder that would close around a wrist of anybody from a 2-year-old to an 80-year-old to a 300-pound football player. And that took us actually 9 months. And while we were doing that, at the same time, we were filing patents for intellectual property. We were going through the FDA. We were going and getting clearance in the EU. So we finished all of that stuff right around 2016. And in 2016, we decided to go out and market the device, and found out that I was not a very good salesperson and marketing person. But thankfully, Dr. Newman had told people, and people told people, and people told people. And so we were selling many more devices than I thought we would, but not what we wanted to sell, because we knew all of the things that it did for the last 3 or 4 years from using it on different people. And Danielle and I set a goal for ourselves to have everybody on Earth, I know it's a big goal, but everybody on Earth either have an Avison or have access to an Avison, because, and at that time we didn't know about the longevity benefits, but we saw all of the health benefits that were that were manifesting themselves when people would use a device. And I know the first couple of years, I remember people started finding about the migraine relief that our device provided. And Danielle would come home from church on Sunday, and we'd have 5, 6 people in the living room, and we only had 2 devices, and they were all trying to use it. And these were people that actually just came and rang the doorbell and said, we heard about your device. Our friend was over here. Can we come and join? And we brought so-and-so. And so it almost got to be a Jeannie Basso's house for people who were first introduced to the device at Jeannie's house. And so they told other people about it. And then we got involved with the FDA, and we wanted to get cleared for migraines. And they said, hey, that'd be great, but it's gonna take. We'd like to see 3 geographic areas for a study, 100 people each in the areas. And it turned out to be, it would be about $4 million in 4 years before we could get anything done. And we were just bootstrapping at the time. We had money from customers, which we're very proud of. Actually, our customers funded 75% of the company, and then friends and family did the other 25%. And then our first revenue from our years, we just plowed back into the company. And so what we have today, for all of you who actually found out about our device, is we've got a FDA Class 2 medical device that's cleared. We have 14 patents now, 5 US patents, 9 international patents, and it's come a long, long way. So,
do you want to talk about any of the studies?
Oh yeah, okay.
Let's do update.
Okay, so update.
Update.
There's got to be music here somewhere, right?
It's like the Shark Tank, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we have done a number of studies. Our most famous study was funded by, or sponsored by, the University of California, San Diego, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. And that was on fibromyalgia. And the reason that came about is the Department of Veterans Affairs came to us and said, we have this thing called fibromyalgia. That was way back in 2011, just about a couple of years after. And we had the old device where you had to put water in and everything. And we don't know what to do with it. We don't want to have another problem where we have to give people drugs, because military people are supposed to be on alert. And then also at that time, the Department of Veterans Affairs was pretty messed up, and they didn't have any treatment for people with fibromyalgia. And so they sponsored a study, and we did it at the University of California, San Diego, highly regarded research entity. And it was a 28-day study, and we had a control group that had a dosage of 10 minutes once a day, and then we had the active group, which had 2 15-minute treatments a day. And so for the control group, this was supposed to be a non-active dosage. We were surprised, as were the principal investigators, that even at 10 minutes a day, we were getting something like about an 18% reduction in widespread pain. But when we boosted it up to 15 minutes twice a day, we went up to a 40.5%, which for the pharmaceuticals that are prescribed that have a lot of side effects, they were averaging over 13 weeks, they weren't even averaging 2%. They were a little bit under 2% reduction in widespread pain. So that got a lot of people interested in the company. That study was published and peer reviewed. You'll find it on our website. Actually, one of the interested party was this doctor at San Diego State University. He wanted to find out more about it, and he invited us over. First thing he wanted to do was do a study on, not a study, but well, it was a case study regarding the reduction of mean arterial pressure, or reduction of blood pressure, and that proved to be the results were excellent. And so that got us into a relationship with San Diego State University. And the next studies we did were, well, we were getting a lot of people with diabetes giving us testimonials, or you guys would pass them on, that their insulin reduction was reduced by 1/3. Their A1C went from 8, 9 down to under 6, under 7, which are good numbers. And again, it was like, what the heck is going on? And so the department at San Diego State Department of Exercise and Nutrition, which they studied diabetes all the time, convinced us that we should do a study to see what we were doing with blood glucose, if we were reducing blood glucose significantly. So we embarked on a study with 50 people. The 50 people were divided actually into four different groups. The first group was people that just did fasting, glucose tests, and then there was the oral glucose tolerance test. Now, the first two groups were healthy people. They weren't pre-diabetic and they weren't diabetic. And so then the third group was a group of pre-diabetics, and then the fourth group is a group of diabetics. And that study finished last year, but we're still writing the manuscripts for it. Now the results, which I can't release only because to get published in a major publication, you have to certify that the information through the study is not in the public domain. And so I'd like to tell you the results of the study.
I just want to ask you, are you happy with them?
Yeah, I'm happy with them. That was a pretty good one, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay, Gracie.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And so that study will be available in the next, by the end of summer. And I think everybody will be very happy.
You're all going to be very happy.
It's going to change the way that people look at this device. It will be, well, anyway.
Game changer.
Yeah, I've had people make some astounding claims what will happen when this gets released. So get ready. And the final study that, well, we're going into another study about wound healing, but we're just in the process of starting that. But the other study was on autism, ASD, and autistic spectrum. What's ASD?
Autistic spectrum disorder.
Yeah, ASD. But
yes.
I don't like to use the word disorder. But
and we don't like to really say.
So we just say on the spectrum. Spectrum. It used to be.
People,
anyway.
Children on the spectrum.
Right.
End of story.
Yeah, and so we had some personal experience with our nephews on that, and so that got us into trying to get more information about it. And we went to the Organization for Autism Research, OAR. They call it OR. It's in McLean, Virginia, and they have all the top researchers on their advisory board. And they said, oh, the guy that needs to really do this is Dr. Fetter. And he does a lot of review of studies and casework for us. And I said, okay, so how do I find this Dr. Fetter? And he said, well, you ever heard of Solana Beach, California? And I said, oh, somebody's watching out for us again, Danielle.
Yeah.
And so we made a meeting with Dr. Fetter. We told him about the device. We brought him a device. And very skeptical, extremely skeptical.
Beyond skeptical.
Beyond skeptical.
Which we're used to.
Yeah, and which we're used to. But then some of our users that were getting amazing results and parents came in and talked to him and said, you really need to get involved in this. And so he brought in Fielding Graduate University in Santa Barbara, and we worked together, put together a protocol, and started that 2.5 years ago. I guess like 2018. And so that study has been going on. We're just getting to the final part of the manuscript. It seems to grow. It's 140 pages now, but it started out, it was going to be 15. And so it's 140 pages because every time we start looking into why some of these findings happened. It started out also just that we were, because one of the things we do is our device mimics a low-grade fever, and there's some really good benefits to that. Number one, it'll engage the immune system, which long-term or even short-term, it'll prevent you from picking up viruses. So on the number of people that sent in testimonials last week when I asked for them for our presentation to the FDA, I would say half of them, because I asked for immune system improvement that you knew of or respiratory issues. And almost all of the people with respiratory issues said, and we haven't had the device out there that long, but they said, well, this was the first winter that we didn't get the flu. I'm in bed, I'm very susceptible to it, or I didn't get my bronchitis didn't flare up. And now people, some of the people, because it's spring in places like Oregon, they get a lot of allergies, and people would say, I didn't get my allergies this year. So, I was talking about the fever effect. Okay, so with autism, there's something called the fever effect, and we had personal experience with the fever effect. And any person that has
child on the spectrum.
Child on the spectrum will know that when their child gets a fever, the most amazing thing happens is they become almost normal for a couple of days while they have the fever. And even a couple of days after the fever goes away, their children will have amazing verbal skills. They won't be melting down, which, by the way, in the UK is a medical term, melting down. I didn't believe it, but I was shown that. They don't have a meltdown, and they sleep at night. So here we have something that can safely, and one of the reasons that there hasn't been a lot of research on it is because you have to infect the child, and you can't get an IRB. IRB stands for Institutional Review Board to approve infecting children. And so when our device came along, here it was. It was a device that could create the same thing that happens with a moderate fever. And so that's how we started out on our journey on researching autism. And anyway, so that's been going on. So the final paper will be out shortly. The goal of the study was to follow and develop a way to create a protocol and pick out the best things for a major study. And that was a requirement of the Organization for Autism Research. They're more than happy to really jump in, but they wanted to see some preliminary findings. And so this study it's amazing in the preliminary findings, and there's a couple things in there that will lead to a more intensive study of hundreds of kids over many years. So I'm very happy with that, and we should be able to release that information before June, I think.
Can you tell them how extensive it was? I mean, it wasn't just the child, it was the whole family.
Yeah, we included the whole family,
Yeah.
Which is the first time. I mean, people have looked at the family, but I mean, when I say we, I mean they, developed a way to video a child before and after an event, and in this case, the event was using the Avicen, and then give it to a third party to rate it, and that has never been done before. So they could say, here's the change that we saw, and so there was a scale put together. I don't know how it's going to be named, but it might be named after the school Fielding. So you have a 1 to 10, and the video reviewer would give it a 7. Say the change was 1 out of 10. That's going to be incorporated, I think, in all types of autism research, and so you can be very proud that
you're all a part of this.
That you're all part of that.
And you've been ever so patient. We appreciate it. I know we've been talking about it for over a year almost, but it just takes time, and we want to do it correctly because we only want to do it once, and we want to make sure that we legitimize all of this, and so that's why we all have to be a little bit more patient, hopefully not too much longer.
Right, and so the word has gotten out in the scientific communities. Last 2 weeks ago, I was invited to go back over to the University of California, San Diego, and they had 2 studies that they thought our device should be studied further, and so we're moving down that area. One was wound healing, which most of you have seen the documentation on that, and
especially because of Beth.
Yeah,
Hinderaker,
and
Dixon,
yeah, and the other one goes way back to migraines because they have the money and we have a 30-page protocol already developed for migraines that we did many years ago after the fibromyalgia study with the University of California, San Diego. So that's all done and ready to go, but we just didn't have the money, but they feel that they found the money for that. So that again will be very exciting. Anything else? We probably have about 5 minutes left. I can't see how much time we have left.
Well, we can,
You're good to go. You're good, Tom. I want you to share all that you have to share. You two are very important, and all the information that you share is information people want to hear. So just go for it.
Okay. Well, we're important. Okay.
Yes, you are.
Never, Jeannie, never tell him that. Are you crazy? Come on.
Well, we have a device that keeps us from being impotent, so I can't tell that.
Okay.
That wasn't a medical claim, by the way.
That was not.
Okay.
All right, stop it.
Yeah.
I think we just want to say how, Duke like that. We just want to say how grateful we are. I just want to thank Jeannie for putting us together with Bill and Dr. Bird.
Bill Fitzgerald.
No, stop it.
All right.
Bill and Bob and Dr. Bird. That was an amazing thing that happened. We're very, very appreciative. This is so exciting. It's really what has been accomplished with New Life Ventures in a year when we did our launch is spectacular. And you're keeping us on our toes, and we're grateful for that, and we love every second of it. We want to let you know that during this difficult time, our employees are doing really well. As soon as California locked down, which was pretty smart of California, I have to say, because I think we're going to help a lot of people stay healthy. Our team is pretty spectacular. They were on the phone and we were doing a conference call, and we are COVID safe. We are wearing gloves, we're wearing masks, we've been doing this for weeks now. We have a protocol that everyone takes their temperature, 3 times a day, and we use oximeters. So everyone is staying really safe. So you have nothing to worry about with manufacturing. We're all good to go.
I think the one thing important about manufacturing is that on Thursday, everything was great. We had an objective by March 31st to have, I think, 12 pallets of product available. I think you guys asked for 14, but we agreed on 12. And the next day,
everything locked down.
Next day, we couldn't even go into work. And so we quickly, over the weekend, actually starting Friday afternoon, we moved everything to people's homes. And so we have a production line in 6 people's houses, and each one does a certain thing. And we have a delivery person that delivers stuff in the morning and then comes back and picks them up at night, and that goes to another person. And we just couldn't risk having one person get COVID-19 and having to shut down production. So that took our production from what it was doing on Thursday to about 60% by Monday. Okay, so our production was at 60%, but people will all agree to that weekend. Everybody worked.
Last weekend.
Right?
No? Okay.
So that first weekend, everybody worked throughout the weekend, and then they started working 10-hour days. And then the following weekend was right before March 31st, and everybody worked way overtime through the weekend, and we met the deadline when they came and picked up the 12 pallets of Avison devices to take to the Dallas Fulfillment Center. And so you guys aren't letting. Yeah, I told everybody, and I feel bad about this. I gave them all stock options, by the way. I told everybody that after the 31st, we could relax and go back. And as soon as the 31st came, we had orders for more pallets than we had to do before. So I had to go back to tell everybody we're going to stay like this for a while, but only until after Easter. So now it looks like we're going to have to do this until May. But the good news is we've gotten back up to production where we were the day before everybody got locked down. And so I think let me say one more thing though. One of the things that I was hoping would happen with the relationship with New Life Ventures is that I could spend more time doing studies and research and concentrating on developing new ways to use the Avison. But in the back of my mind, I was hoping that there were 1 or 2 people that would come along in New Life that would open doors that I couldn't open. That means that I had personal relationships with either a scientific researcher, a doctor, a hospital, areas that were, the gatekeepers are insurmountable, especially for a small company that doesn't really have any clout or aren't making any huge donations to their institution. And I'm happy to say that there's 2 or 3 of those that have happened already. I didn't think that would happen in a long time, but we are working on some exciting things that I can't talk about because we're under non-disclosures that New Life Ventures IVPs have brought to us. And that's going to benefit everybody. So what I'm asking, or I'm kind of nudging everybody, is think about the relationships that you have. Think about somebody at church. One of these actually came through their church. Okay, with somebody, tell them about the device and tell them this isn't a promotional call, but you know how influential they are, and how can you help me get this into your hospital? Can you help me get this into your research? Can you help me get some funding? There are people that know a lot of people, especially in this business. There's a lot of wealthy people that in the direct sales business. But anyway, I just want to encourage you to always keep thinking about how you can open a door for Avison, and we really appreciate that.
Only because look what we've done so far to help so many people with so many different areas of their lives. It's, you know, we've always said it's a wellness device. It's just not for pain. And I really, really honestly believe that with my heart and soul. And this device, as you already all know, changes lives from 2-year-olds to 96-year-olds. And so this is why we get up in the morning. This is why Tom's working 18 hours a day. This is why I'm on 2 phones at once these days. And this is just what we do. And we're happy to do it. And we really, really appreciate everything that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Back to
Thank
you,
very much.
Jeannie.
Thank you.